All right, let's dive into a strategic principle that is, well, it's pretty provocative. It comes from a text called The Art of Decisive Correction, and it's a leadership idea that really pushes back against a lot of what we think we know. It's called the public execution rule.
And this is it. This is the entire philosophy boiled down into one sentence. One public correction is worth 1,000 private warnings. I mean, that's a powerful and, let's be honest, a pretty jarring statement. To really understand how this is supposed to work, we need to start at the very beginning, with that moment every leader absolutely dreads.
You know, to really get this rule, we have to start with a moment that every single leader faces. We'll call it the first challenge. This is that critical make-or-break moment when a rule, any rule, gets tested for the very first time. And how a leader responds right then and there, well, that can define their authority from that point on.
So this brings us to a huge question, and I want you to really think about this for a second. When your authority gets challenged, especially for that first time, what is the most effective response? Is it a quiet word? A gentle reminder? The source material we're digging into here, it suggests something way more radical. And that radical answer, it has a name. The source calls it the public execution rule, and it frames it as a principle of finality. The name itself is designed to be shocking, right? It's meant to grab your attention and tell you just how severe and decisive this strategy is supposed to be. So, what exactly is it? According to the text, it's a strategy where the very first act of defiance is corrected, not just decisively, but publicly. And the goal is incredibly specific, to stop any future challenges to that authority dead in their tracks.
Now you can see right away how this just completely clashes with what most of us are taught about leadership. Conventional wisdom says, praise in public, correct in private. It's all about gradual improvement, repeated warnings. But the public execution rule, it just flips that whole idea on its head. It argues for one single public action that addresses the entire group and demands immediate compliance. It's a totally different playbook.
So let's break that down. Let's start with that first major piece, the power of making a public example. This is about way more than just fixing one person's mistake. It's about sending a loud and clear message to everybody else watching. Which, of course, leads to the obvious question, why? Why does the source insist this has to be public? Why not just handle it quietly, behind closed doors? You know, the way that feels a lot more comfortable and humane.
Well, the text gives a very stark, very unsentimental answer. To ensure compliance from the herd. The logic here is all about group psychology. See, a private correction, that only changes one person's behavior. But a public one, that sends a shockwave through the entire group. It shows everyone all at once what the consequences are. It's meant to be a powerful deterrent. In this model, the individual isn't just being corrected, they're the message.
Okay, so that's the public part. Now let's move on to the next key idea, because this is where it really builds. The impact of finality. The source material actually uses the phrase, punish once, never twice. This isn't just about being public. It's about being so decisive that the issue is settled for good.
So, let's walk through the process it lays out. Step 1. A challenge happens. Step 2. A single decisive correction is made. Not a warning, not a chat, a final action. The intended result of that action? The issue is now permanently closed. No more back and forth. That one action is meant to establish compliance from that day forward, period.
So what's the end game here? I mean, why would anyone advocate for a strategy that sounds this severe? According to the source, the ultimate goal is to achieve something it calls permanent respect. So, when you put it all together, the intended outcomes are pretty clear. The rule is designed to get rid of the need for those endless, draining warnings. It makes a massive example out of that very first challenge. The whole point is to establish unwavering authority, which then leads to this state of permanent respect, where the leader's rules are just understood and followed, no questions asked.
So after breaking all this down, after looking at this strategy from the art of decisive correction, we're left with a really powerful and maybe uncomfortable question. The rule aims for respect through one single decisive public act. But it forces us all to wonder, what's the line between decisive leadership and just plain fear?